Here's a video if you're new to Jira and how to use it with the Scrum framework. Or maybe you're not new. Maybe you're not new to Jira, you're not new to Scrum, but you would like a refresher, or perhaps you'd like AxisAgile's take on the Scrum framework. Either way, what I'm going to do in a series of videos is take you through this Scrum diagram. I'm going to unpack it and I'm going to show you for each of the artifacts within Scrum on this diagram. I'll show you how you can implement it using a combination of Jira and Confluence, and for each of the activities on the Scrum diagram, how Jira and Confluence can complement that activity. So like I said, we're going to step through it through a series of videos, and this is the first video in that series where I'm going to cover the roles in Scrum, the product goal, and the product backlog. Okay, let's do it. Okay, let's get started on this Scrum diagram. And like I said, I'm going to do it over a few videos. So if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe so you get notified when the next video comes out. Now, I'm also going to do it at a fairly high level. I'm just going to show you an overview of the Scrum diagram and, like I said, how we can implement parts of it using Jira and Confluence. However, if you want to deep dive into certain parts of the diagram, like sprint planning or the definition of done or sprint retrospectives, well, I've got other videos for those, or I will have other videos for those. So what I'll do is, when there are other videos that you can potentially watch to deep dive into those topics, I'll pop them up on the screen, and you can also find them in the description below. So you can go check out those videos when you get a chance, if you want to step up your knowledge of Scrum and Jira and really deep dive into certain topics. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to begin with the roles in Scrum. Scrum prescribes 3 roles, and you might have more roles than that in your implementation, but Scrum only prescribes 3, and it's very important to understand what each of them is responsible for, because they will use Jira and Confluence in different ways. Now, why does Scrum only prescribe 3? And the way I like to put it is, we're trying to balance 3 things. Firstly, having a level of focus around what are we going to build. Secondly, having a level of focus on how are we going to build it. And finally, focusing on how are we going to work together. So those 3 areas of focus we divide into these 3 different roles. So let's start with the what. The what belongs to this role called a product owner. And a product owner will decide, firstly, what are we going to build? But secondly, what order are we going to build it in? So when you think about what are we going to build, this might be encapsulated in a product goal, in a vision, or a long-term objective. But then the product owner also needs to think about, okay, how are we going to reach that objective? What steps are we going to take to get there? And what order should we take those steps? So a product owner will typically be prioritizing the product backlog and really focusing on maximizing return on investment. So with the product owner deciding on what are we going to build, who then is responsible for how are we going to build it? Well, in Scrum, it belongs to this role called the developers. The developers are responsible for how the work will get done, but also responsible for how much work can get done. More specifically, how much can get done in a sprint cycle at a time. Now, just to clarify this term, to be honest with you, I don't really like it because if you come from the software development world, you're probably going to equate developers to programmers or coders. Now, in Scrum, a developer is not a programmer, or not just a programmer. It's actually what we call a cross-functional team. So if you're developing software, you might have a cross-functional team where you have you've got a programmer in there, but you've also got maybe a business analyst and a tester, maybe even a user experience designer. Now, in Scrum terms, all those different people are all just developers, okay? And they are part of the cross-functional development team. So look, if you find that the term developers in Scrum is confusing, I often replace it with the term delivery team. I find that's more clear, okay, eliminates all that confusion, and we know that it's not just programmers that are part of this group. So, the developers in Scrum are responsible for the how and the how much can get done in a sprint cycle at a time. Okay, and on to the third role here on the diagram, and that is our Scrum Master. Now, just like the term developers in Scrum can be confusing, the term Scrum Master can be confusing as well. And it's typically around that word master. What do we mean by master? Does that mean they're telling everyone what to do? Does that mean they're the boss? No. Okay, the way I like to put it is the Scrum Master is not the master of the team, but they are the master of the process. So sometimes Scrum Masters are instead called process owners, or you might hear them being called iteration managers. And the responsibility of the Scrum Master is to make sure that the process is adopted effectively, but also continuously improved over time. So remember I said that what Scrum was trying to do was balance what are we going to build, how are we going to build it, but also how are we going to work together? Well, that final responsibility of how we're working together, that belongs to the Scrum Master. So if you're playing this role, what you want to do is make sure that, again, the Scrum process is being adopted effectively, but also it's being inspected and adapted and improved over the long term. So now that you understand the three roles in Scrum, it's important to be mindful about how each of them uses Jira and Confluence, and I'll point it out in this series of videos. So let's continue unpacking our Scrum diagram, and we'll move to the top left corner now and talk about the product goal. Now you'll notice on the diagram there are a couple of other characters there giving input to this artifact, and you'll notice that there's SH on them. What does SH stand for? Those are our stakeholders. Now, who are stakeholders in the Scrum framework? Well, these are individuals who have an interest in what your team is doing. Common examples of stakeholders could be your sponsor, it can be management, it could be members from other teams, but they are the ones who have an interest in what you're doing and what you're going to produce over the longer term. So what will happen here is your product owner will work with those stakeholders to define a product goal or a long-term objective. So where do we encapsulate the product goal? Well, first we need to understand the difference between Jira and Confluence. Now, Jira is a tracking tool. So it's really good to understand and gain visibility around where the work is at. How is it progressing? Who's doing what? Confluence, on the other hand, is a wiki, and it's a tool that's used to capture information and knowledge of the team. So the best place to document your project's product goal or vision is in Confluence. Now, what we want to do though is we can connect Confluence to your Jira project so that we know that there's an association and the team can quickly go back to the product goal if need be. So how do you connect the two? I'll quickly show you now. Okay, connecting Jira to Confluence is easy. All you need to do is just go to project pages here in the left panel. And by the way, this is a cloud version of Jira. And so we click on project pages and you'll see this connect to Confluence option. So we simply just click that. You will need to have set up a Confluence space. And so I'll pick the one that I'm after. It's called one-on-one car rentals. That's the example I'm going to use. And I simply hit connect. Now we can see our Confluence pages here. Obviously it's blank at the moment. If you want to, you can create documents from the right, or you can actually jump to your Confluence instance simply by clicking on this link in the top right corner. So if I click on that, off I go. I'm in the Confluence space now. And here is where we want to capture our vision. So this example I'm using, again, it's called one-on-one car rentals. And just to tell you what it's about briefly, imagine that you could put your vehicle up for rent and somebody could come to a particular website and say, hey, can I use your car for a few hours or a few days or a few weeks? And you could maybe make some money through renting your car out. So that's what one-on-one car rentals is. Now let's imagine I need to create a vision for it and capture it. So what we're going to do is we're going to simply go over here, create a page, and I will put in here one-on-one car rentals. Again, you could call it a vision or a product goal. Why don't I say product goal to align with the Scrum diagram. And the template that I like to use for a vision looks like this. It's nice and simple. It says for a particular customer who has a statement of need, this product provides these key benefits, and unlike our competitors, our product does this, this, and this. So if I was to use this template for this one-on-one car rentals idea, this is perhaps what I would come up with. And just remember, this is really something that your product owner should be doing with stakeholders. So they'll workshop this vision, this product goal, they'll define it, and then they will capture it here. So once it's captured, we hit publish, we share it with the Scrum team, make sure everybody understands what we're trying to achieve. And then what you can also do is create a link from Confluence back to your Jira project. So what we need to do is, let's say we go back to the Jira project, and then we copy the link here. Okay, so the link to, well, actually, why don't we go to the active sprint board? We don't have anything there yet, but we'll copy that. And then we're going to go back to Confluence and we'll simply add a shortcut here. So you can click add shortcut, put the link in, and let's call it one-on-one car rentals Jira project. Add shortcut, save, and then you can see here, we just click on there. It brings me back to my Jira project. And of course, if I want to go back to Confluence, or my team does, we click on project pages and we can see the documents right there. All right, so that's how you connect Jira and Confluence. We use Confluence to capture knowledge and information. We're going to use Jira to track work and to understand where the project is at. So now you know that the product owner will work with stakeholders to define a product goal, and the product goal will be captured inside Confluence. However, what we'll do is we'll set up a connection between Confluence and Jira so that we know that this particular product goal is associated to a particular project in Jira. Now, what the product owner needs to do next is to define the steps that we are going to take to get to that product goal. And these steps are defined inside an artifact called the Product Backlog in Scrum. Now, how do we implement the product backlog using either Confluence or Jira? Well, luckily, Jira, when you use the Scrum template, has a product backlog user interface. So let's go check that out, and I'll step you through the different features and how you can capture information at different levels. All right, so here is the product backlog view in Jira. And to get to this view, you simply click on backlog here in the left panel. Now, what I'm going to do is just really go through this product backlog view at a very high level. Remember, this video is just an overview, and maybe for those who are new to Jira and Scrum, if you're more experienced and you'd like more detail about this product backlog view and how to get it right with your Scrum team, well, I'm going to place a link up on the screen now, and you can check that video out when you get a chance. I'll also put it in the description below. The other thing I'll mention is that I have loaded up the product backlog here with our sample data. And I like to use the sample data because it's a great way for me to play around with the features of Jira without actually needing to create any demo data myself. Now, you can go and download this sample data if you want to and import it. If you would like to do that, well, again, check out the description below, and there's a link to download this sample data, and you can watch a video on how to import it. All right, so let's go through this product backlog again at a high level just to get a feel for it if you're new to it. And you can see here the product backlog items are listed from top to bottom. And of course, our product owner should be the one who's creating these and prioritizing them. Firstly, what they'll do is they'll create the product backlog items. And it can be done quite simply, either by clicking the Create button at the top there, or you can even go to the bottom of the backlog and there's a Create Issue down here. So what will happen is we just click Create Issue, we put in a description for the item. So let's say I say upload video of car, and then it's easy to add details to these product backlog items. You just click on it, and over on the right here, a panel will pop out, and in this panel, you can add a description, you can put in an estimate, you can also customize this view and add more fields, and you can lastly attach more information. So it could be Word documents, wireframes, Excel spreadsheets of information. You can attach that all to a product backlog item. So product owner will add product backlog items, and then what they're going to do is obviously prioritize it and decide, is it something that a team should do in the near term, or maybe it's something later into the future. To prioritize product backlog items in Jira, we simply just drag it up and down. Okay, that's the easiest way to do it. Now, convenient feature that this product backlog view has is you can actually right-click on the item, and you'll see this contextual menu, and there's a few options here, but I find that these two here can be really useful. So I can click top of backlog and it pops right to the top there. All right, so again, you can either drag and drop or just right click, and there are a few convenient ways to reprioritize the product backlog items. Now, what else is useful here? You can see that for these other product backlog items, I've got labels on them. And what are these labels? Well, let's start with the colorful ones here. You can see I've got sign up page, account management. These are actually epics. And epics in Jira are a way to group a collection of product backlog items to show that they're all associated. Maybe they're all part of one bigger initiative that's going to be done over many, many sprints. So how do you assign a product backlog item to an epic? You just go over to the epics panel on the left here, and you get a list of your epics. Of course, you can create some if you need to, or your product owner can. And to assign it, the easiest way to do it is just to click and drag. And then you can see it has assigned this product backlog item to that epic. So here you can explore the epic panel. If you pop it open there, you can basically see how many issues are there, completed, unestimated, estimated. And if we want to, we can also click on the epic to get a filtered view. So we can see all the items that are related to rental listing here. Now, if you want to go back to the original view, we just click all issues at the top there, and we're back to where we started. So that's what that label is. Again, it's just a way for us to categorize our product backlog items. The other label here, the gray one, is a version that we've assigned the product backlog item to. So if you want to see the versions and create them and assign product backlog items to them, just like the epics panel, you can see we've got a versions panel here. Simply create the version in there, and like I did with the epic, we can click and drag this item and drop it into the version. And when you expand that, you can see you can set some dates there and get an overview, again, how many issues are assigned to that version and what remains. So that can be very useful, because what happens here is at times a product backlog can get quite large, and it's really important for the product owner to be able to clearly see what's coming up in the near term and what requires their focus. So what I like to do is I encourage product owners to filter this view. For example, I'll say, hey, just click on version 1 and only look at version 1 product backlog items, so they don't get distracted by these version 2 items, which is something that they don't need to see for quite some time. All right, so that is the product backlog view in Jira at a high level. Again, if you want more details, go check out that other video in the description. Okay, so we've covered the roles in Scrum, the product goal, and the product backlog, and how we can use a combination of Jira and Confluence to implement those elements of the Scrum diagram. In the next video, I'm going to take you through sprint planning, visualizing the work day to day inside your sprint, and the definition of done, how that can be implemented using Jira and or Confluence. So if you don't want to miss out, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you at the next video. Thanks, everyone.